Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. We are 23 days away from kickoff, so tell us who your favorite number 23 is. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, what you got, Jerry.
The student's got a statement to make. The best 23 in Texas history is going to need, and no offense to Jeff Ward, is going to need to be Jaden Blue this year.
Yeah, no offense to Jeff Ward. I love it. Kicker. Jeff McCullough, there's one. Trey Newton, Carrington Bynum, and Jade Barron wore 23 for a while.
Carrington Bynum was a really good player out of Lufkin High. A cup of coffee in the NFL. Really good corner out of Lufkin. Probably developed into a better player than a lot of people thought he would be. So that I wanted to give him a little shout out there because he maximized what he had.
Hey, while everybody knows that Jaden Blue is 23, by the way, and it's odd that we're talking about 23 on a day after we find out what happened to Cedric Baxter. Jordan Johnson-Rebel is the defensive number 23 on this year's team, the true freshman out of IMG. So keep that in mind. All right, let's y'all ready to get going with some news and what we have for this morning. Let's talk first about Cedric Baxter, a young man out of Orlando's Edgewater High School. Released news yesterday that he is out for the season. He had a knee injury sustained in Tuesday's practice. We, of course, reported that. Furthermore, unfortunately, after second and third opinion, what I'm being told, by the way, guys, he was advised to go ahead and get this stuff done and worked on LCL, PCL, both tears. One of them a full tear. I think one the partial is what I'm being told. Now, I'm not a doctor. We're actually going to have someone on a little bit later today to talk about this injury, just to get a clear understanding of what it is. But my opinion is now Texas must look forward. We talk about the proverbial next man up line of thinking. I wrote an article this morning for On Texas Football about the number of ways this affects Texas. It is a big loss for Texas because Cedric Baxter was not only your starter, he was a guy that filled a multitude of roles in one person. So not only was he your probable short yardage back, he was also your best pass protector. He was also your best lead blocker, and he was probably your smartest running back. Smartest running back with experience. Good way to put that, Jerry. And the most experienced. Furthermore, he was the leader in the running back room. Unquestionable leader in the running back room. So all of those things put together, it's now how does Texas react? And the question I have, Jerry, and the most likely answer is how does Texas replace all of what they've lost here? They can do it in one of two fashions. Frankly, somebody else can step up and just take it over. I think that would have to be, if that were to be the case, it would have to be one of the freshmen, Jarrett Gibson or Christian Clark. And the reason I say it would have to be them because the short yardage back, you don't think it's going to be Blue or Weisner because of their builds, right? You don't think those guys are made out to be lead blockers on a pony package play either. They might be passable in pass protection. I even think Trey Weisner may end up being the best pass protector of the group just because of his natural feistiness. But you lose the idea that you can put one guy in there and be versatile and keep some versatility on the field. You can keep Cedric Baxter. You could have kept Cedric Baxter in the backfield and lined up Jaden Blue in the slot. You could have given him a pony package look where they think it's heavy run, and all of a sudden, late in the series or late in the count, Jaden Blue motions out to become a slot guy. So it is a little bit of a change there. I also think that it's a locker room change. I don't want to gloss that over because I do believe this was a young man that is a leader in that locker room. I mean, people looked up to him, not just sophomores, not just freshmen, but across the board because he's the guy that came into Texas and did the right thing from day one. And he is, I shouldn't say was in the past tense, he is a leader on this team. And so I think there's going to be a lot of different pieces combed together that I'm not sure any one person can take over. It's going to have to be a mix, and it's going to have to be piecemeal, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I got a few comments on this, and if I have to hit the cough button, sorry, but it's allergies are 1,000, me 0 right now. But I've seen some comments in the chat. Nobody's whining. We're just here to talk. If you don't want to hear the discussion, you don't have to be here. I'm not trying to be an ass, but don't sit here and say people are whining. We're here to talk about it. And I'm just going to be 100% real on that. That's what we're here to do. It's a loss. But here's the thing. The Sark gets paid $10 million a year and there is a next man up mentality, even after what everything Bobby had to say about it, which I agree with. The key for me in the Baxter news is, look, there's to take to be the starting running back at a program like Texas, your first game in front of 100,000 people in the stands. That means you have a real calmness, understanding, maturity, processing ability, and football intelligence to you. So Texas had a ton of confidence in Cedric Baxter when he was a true freshman to handle all that. Did that mean he was the best runner on the team? Jonathan Brooks was the best runner on the team. But look, I mean, it's here's why it's a loss, because when I looked at Texas this year, it doesn't mean the season's over. It doesn't mean you're going to lose 2 games when maybe you only lost 1 or lost none. But it's just the discussion of all of it, because it does change. It's not just us talking. If you think the offensive staff isn't saying, okay, we got to change up a little bit of what we wanted to do here, we got to kind of look at, okay, this was our plan for our offense this year to maximize it, but now we have to have a different plan to maximize it. Those conversations are real. They're happening. So we're talking about it as well. Because when you could play Baxter and Blue, not only were they a really good combo, so Baxter's in a series, then Blue comes in, even within a series, great combination of players because they had totally different strengths. But when you wanted to play them together, Cedric Baxter was so good in pass pro that Sark could do whatever he wanted with Jaden Blue and hunt the matchups, put him in motion, use him in the slot, and play the games that Sark likes to play pre-snap. Well, it's not just plug and play with these guys. Like if Jaden Blue had been hurt, you aren't suddenly going to put Cedric Baxter in the slot and tell him to run a seam route. These are different players. They have different strengths. So Texas has to go kind of refine, change up what they were going to do offensively somewhat, because you're not going to plug in Trey Wisner and ask him to do the exact same things that you're asking Cedric Baxter to do. They're different players. They have different strengths. They have different styles. And that versatility, I think, is what makes Sark's offense so good. And that's why I really like the running back room. But it's not just plug and play. They have to take a look at things and how are things going to change a little bit, because they are, from the plan that they had in the offseason, how they were going to use those guys together, use that trio, how they were going to mesh it all, make it all work to maximize the team in their eyes. Well, now your starter, and he is the starter's out for the year, so you have to go back and change a little bit of that. So that's just what we're talking about here. And because the key to me is you're not going to ask Jaden Blue to do all the same things you're asking Cedric Baxter to do, just like you wouldn't ask Cedric Baxter to do all the things you're asking Jaden Blue to do. They're different players. They have different strengths. So now Sark's kind of got to go in. This is what makes him a really good offensive coach and a $10 million man and a coach that got Texas to the playoffs last year, because they've had to adjust. Guys get hurt all the time. They have to go in and kind of adjust the original plan. And Texas has a really good staff, and they'll get it done. But it's going to be a little bit different than what they envisioned in the entire offseason.
Oh, look at that. Good morning, fellows, from Chris Stewart's Pops. That is a young receiver out of Pearland, I believe, right, Jerry?
Shadow Creek. Hey, I don't know if you can run, but your kid can run, man. If you were a 10-7 guy, I want you to respond in the chat, please, because your son's got a little burst and explosion. And by the way, tell Chris I'll be over there next in a couple of weeks to watch him.
Hey, Jerry, some people are asking, I only mentioned one way, and that's the piecemeal way. The other way is if Christian Clark or Jarrett Gibson step up, and are that guy. I just don't think that's really likely. I think it's more likely they do it piecemeal. with Trey Wisner. I do believe, I know it sounds weird because he may be the lightest of all of them, Jerry, but Trey Wisner to me has that kind of natural feistiness that might work really well as a pass protector. I don't know if he could be a lead blocker. You know what I mean by that? But I do think he can be a pretty good pass protector because he's willing to stick his nose in there, right? And that's kind of what a pass protector needs. But the other piece of this that doesn't get enough attention is intelligence or football intelligence. Jerry was talking about it a little bit with his comment about how Sark was confident about his calmness early last season and able to go out there and handle things. A lot of that came down to to Cedric Baxter's football IQ, right? It wasn't just that he's calm under pressure or whatever. It's the fact that he could process things in time and not make mental mistakes or mental errors on a level that would get your quarterback hurt. Frankly, Quinn got hurt last year, not because of any running back in pass protection. It was actually JT Sanders in pass protection. And so my thinking on this is, I'm not sure Texas has a great pass protecting tight end unless it's Malik Agbo, but you don't want to use him on the field too much.
Because that limits your Sark scheme offensively. Yes. It limits what he can do. The other thing is I want to bring up, I don't know if you have it, Blake, but I think I know our producer Matt had a graphic for the running backs. Now, I don't know if you don't have access to it, but I wanted us to talk about, before we get to Khalil Lockett and recruiting and all that, because we got some Khalil Lockett stuff as well. He committed to Texas yesterday. Obviously, DJ Sanders, we said it was going to be a nighttime after the sun went down commitment. He committed to Texas A&M a day earlier than expected. Then his high school staff at Belleville and family were all saying it was going to be tonight, but he went last night. But so we'll talk about all that. But Jarrett Gibson, Christian Clark. I want to talk about Jarrett Gibson some because, Bobby, you watched him play last year, but I've seen him a lot because I go down to IMG. I wanted to say this about Jarrett Gibson because here's the reality. All right. And by the way, all these heights and weights, I don't think are fully accurate. This was Texas rounding off numbers for SEC Media Days. Jaden Blue, I don't think is going to be 6 foot when he goes to the NFL Combine, and I don't think he'll be 200 pounds. I think he'll be north of that. Christian Clark's probably 5'11 and a half, 210. Wisner is probably closer to 195 pounds. Jarrett Gibson's going to be 5'9", 205, 210. But on Jarrett Gibson, I want to specifically mention him, and because here's the reality now for Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark. On Monday of this week, they were hoping to play against Colorado State, thinking they had a chance to play, get in the game. We would get our feet wet in college football. One of those two guys is now a play away from being a 10 to 12 to 15 touch a game running back at Texas as a true freshman. Because if Blue or Wisner goes down, one of those two guys becomes the number 2 running back and a guy that's going to touch the ball 10, 12, 15 times in a game. So everything changed in their world 2 days ago. So I want to talk about Jarrett Gibson a little bit. And Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark physically are ready to go in Power 4 football. I jokingly say Jarrett Gibson was doing push-ups when he was 2 weeks old. I mean, he is a compact, powerful body type. He's also about 20 years old. He was a little older, so that maturity is there for him. I think he can replace in a different way, can replace the run game stuff with Cedric Baxter if he's called upon to do it. Blue's 1, Wisner's 2. I think Wisner's tremendous slasher, different type of back. But I think Jarrett Gibson is a between the tackles guy. And that doesn't mean runs don't go outside the tackles that are designed to start inside the tackles. But he has some power. He has good vision. He has the quickness. And he's also small and can hide behind large humans. And then when he finds a crease, he's darting to the crease. And he's not going to go score 80. He's not like that. But he can dart to the crease. But what I think he does really, what I think gives him a shot as a true freshman, if he's called upon, become a more of a key player for this offense, is in practice every day at IMG, and you almost have to go down there to experience it. if their whole front seven is power 4 players, and a lot of times their whole defense is power 4 level players at IMG. No difference from maybe modern days, not that level defensively. But so every time Jarrett Gibson takes a handoff in practice, somebody's playing on his side of the line of scrimmage in his peripheral. So he's running the run. He's reading the linebacker, but those holes are pinching quicker for him at IMG in practice than that national schedule he plays than a lot of high school kids. So I think he's in his peripheral. He's already was a step ahead getting into the college game, because I think with running backs sometimes, and we saw it with Leonard Fournette in the Under Armour game when I was at ESPN, that backside he didn't see as quickly in the Under Armour game against all those hellacious top talents in the country as he did on high school tape. So I think with Jarrett Gibson, I think he's so used to having really big, good athletes in his peripheral from a practice setting at IMG. He's prepared for this. He's prepared physically. So from a running standpoint, I think he's prepared. Pass pro, all that's a different game. That's going to have to play out. I think that's where Baxter is really advanced. I think Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark are different runners. I think Christian Clark is more of a violent cutter. I think Christian Clark is the best natural running back frame at Texas. But he's more of the jump cut, skip cut with a violent foot in the ground, sudden movement, change of direction with powerful tree trunk legs on him. So they're different runners. I think Jarrett Gibson could provide some short yardage, some goal line stuff too, because he's really compact. He's low center of gravity. He's hard to get a solid hit on. He's going to be prepared from a vision standpoint and seeing things in his peripheral. It'll be interesting to see if he's ready for the rest.
All right, we got a special guest coming up, Carlos Reyes from the Reyes Performance Institute, Dr. Carlos Reyes. We're going to talk a little bit about Cedric Baxter's injury, but first I want to say thank you to Austin Underground. Rick Vavro and his team are the sponsors of the Thursday morning live stream, Coffee and Football. Since 2004, Austin Underground has specialized in difficult underground commercial installations. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider too risky. Rick and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground. We appreciate Rick and his team and their sponsorship of On Texas Football. All right, guys, let's bring in Carlos Reyes, Dr. Carlos Reyes from the Reyes Performance Institute. I talked to you yesterday a little bit, Doctor. We appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Good morning to you guys, and hook 'em horns.
Hey, Carlos, I wanted to ask you, I hope it's okay. I just call you Carlos. I want to ask you about Cedric Baxter's injury.
Yeah.
They said it's a PCL, LCL. That's what I'm hearing from behind the scenes. I'm not a doctor. You guys, you are. I want to hear because I was more familiar with an ACL.
Sure.
Here, right? Or even an MCL. I've heard of that, or a meniscus. I don't know that I've really heard much of a PCL or LCL tear before. Obviously, it is something. Can you explain to folks what exactly that is and maybe the prognosis for a rehabilitation for Cedric Baxter long term?
Yeah, it was, kind of unfortunate just kind of hearing the news from, Baxter is just kind of expecting some really good things out of him, this year, considering where he was at on the depth chart specifically. And so just kind of looking at the injury itself, it's like you said, it's not common. It's not something that usually pops up all the time. Things you hear is like ACL, MCL, right? Because those are the most common injuries that you see on the field specifically. But I think this was more of a contact injury. And in the knee specifically, there's kind of 4 knee stabilizers that provide the stability around the knee joint itself. The PCL and the LCL, the PCL specifically is a ligament that is towards the back of the knee joint, and the LCL is towards the outside of the knee joint. And the reason why you don't see these type of injuries is because it's rare that the lower leg is going backwards as opposed to always going forwards. In most specific sports like football, you're going to see cutting, quickly as possible going forward and or to the side. Thus, then we see some sort of knee collapse inwards. You see that commonly. You see that on videos when an ACL, MCL, you're like, ooh, I think that's an ACL. Could possibly be an MCL because the knee's going inwards. There are less structures that provide support there. And so that's the reason why you kind of see some of those most common MCL, ACL injuries. On the outside of the knee specifically for the LCL, it's even more less common because you have kind of like a huge IT band tendon that runs into that region, which is very strong. And that adds more stability to the outside of the knee. And so therefore, you're going to see less of the knee going outwards as opposed to inwards. And so usually with those two common injuries specifically, it's very similar to an ACL. With the PCL, there is, if it was just an isolated PCL injury, then, you know, you can perhaps get away with bracing it up, doing some rehabilitation, depending on how severe the tear is, and you can try and play through it. But because it's a concomitant injury, you have the PCL and the LCL, it's just in his best interest, specifically if he wants to play at the next level, to just kind of go ahead and do the rehabilitation standard itself. And so when you're looking at, you know, rehabilitation for something like this, because it's two ligaments now that I have to rehabilitate, you're looking at about a 6 to 9 month period there. So if you're looking at 6 to 9 months, you don't want any more damage to that knee, specifically in the knee, when they're playing the game. You know, the game is so unpredictable with so many different forces coming at you, from the cutting aspect, from the person themselves doing the movements, to people just trying to take your legs out, right? So that's in itself why I believe that it's best in his interest that he continues to go on with this surgical procedure if he's going to do that, and then on with the rehabilitation itself.
So what is rehab? I mean, we hear all the time about guys going to rehab with knee injuries. That was a great explanation, by the way. I appreciate it. What is rehab like for these guys these days? Because I know what it was 20 years ago, 25 years ago, right?
Sure.
What is it today? What is Cedric Baxter really looking at over the next 6 to 9 months?
Yeah, over the 6 to 9 months, you know, depending, I mean, every surgeon is different. Every surgeon has either a little bit more conservative views versus a little bit more aggressive views. So it's always dependent on the surgeon themselves. But ultimately, in generalization, you know, they're looking at weight bearing, you know, immediately. We're going into some standard protocols to activate the quad and all the muscles that support that knee group itself. You know, can take, you know, anywhere between, you know, good 4 to 6 weeks to get a good activation of that. And that can include things like electrical stimulation. There's new innovative, you know, equipment and technology out there like blood flow restriction. And so that's kind of accelerating and giving us the opportunity to then load them a little sooner. And so then we can kind of get into a little bit more aggressive strengthening. So they're not losing as much at the very beginning by just being bed rested or taking more resting procedures as opposed to, or taking it more conservative. And then it just kind of evolves into more functional activity once we start seeing some markers being outlined or met, specifically some milestones. And then as those milestones are met, usually in about the second month, we're starting to get into, like I said, more functional exercises like lunging, different type of squats, different type of, you know, deadlifting, different type of, you know, single leg activities. And then about, you know, anywhere between kind of like the 5th month or 4 to 5 months is now we're starting to introduce some of the more, you know, sport specific things like running. I'm doing some hopping, I'm doing some jumping, those types of things. And in about good 7 months to 9 months is now we're starting to ramp up a little bit more specifically into the sport specific training. Now, can we start looking to, you know, those types of things?
Let me ask you this, for Texas fans out there, is there a good chance Cedric Baxter comes back good as new?
You know, I was looking kind of at the research itself, and you know, with PCL injuries, you have a greater success than you have due in an ACL and MCL, just because the ACL takes a lot of load in that front side of the knee. It takes a lot of force, specifically from the quad too, and so the PCL and the LCL are stressed just a little less than the two other ligaments because you have surrounding structures that can support them a lot. And so some of the literature will show that when it's just an isolated PCL injury, it's as great as like 83% outcome measure for that. So it's a really good chance that he can get back to his previous and prior level of play prior to the injury. And if it was a concomitant injury, you're looking at about 63% as well. And so when we say concomitant, it's just like involving the PCL and some other ligament. And so if he's got, PCL and LCL, he's got about 65% chance to get back to his prior level, but a really good chance of getting back to at least playing the sport that he loves. So they're definitely not off the table that he's not going to get back to playing again a football game.
Dr. Reyes, thank you so much for your time. That was very illuminating. We appreciate you. That's Dr. Carlos Reyes, UT grad, has a place there in Austin called the Reyes Performance Institute. Check him up. We appreciate you, Dr. Reyes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys, and hook 'em horns.
All right, you have a good one,
right.
Dr. Reyes. Good stuff there, guys.
Hey, I wanted to end the Cedric Baxter talk with one more comment because we want to get to Khalil Lockett and the huge recruiting news for Texas yesterday, which it was big. But I want to say this because I've had a lot of texts, had a lot of people say, "Wow, Cedric Baxter's just an injury-prone player." Yes, his injury this year is not an injury-prone player injury. I'm just here to tell you that it was just bad luck. First padded practice. We won't get into it, but that wasn't an injury-prone injury. That's not just a guy being injury-prone. That was just unfortunate.
Yep, I agree with Jerry.
All right, guys. Well, we got more news to talk about, but first, I need to tell folks out there about HelloFresh. And with HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. We all know home-cooked meals are so much better for you, but you don't always have time to pull it off. With HelloFresh handling all the meal planning, shopping, and most of the prep, it's easier than ever to get dinner on the table quick and painless. And that's what I love about it. I'm a busy guy. School started this week. Got 3 kids all in school playing multiple sports. I don't have time to sit around and cook. And that's why HelloFresh lets you easily customize your delivery from week to week. You get to tailor everything to your schedule by adjusting your delivery options. And HelloFresh has a phenomenal deal for our listeners as well. Breakfast is another meal that you don't always have time for. I know I don't, but they have you covered. For free breakfast for life, go to HelloFresh.com/free-on-Texas. You get 1 free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life just by going to HelloFresh.com/free-on-Texas. And that's HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
That's been very popular in the freezer and refrigerator. I'll just say that. It's been very popular. It's been a popular grab from what they sent us.
And then, Bobby, I'm going to also let you tell folks about Babbel.
Yep, we're also sponsored this morning by Babbel. Babbel is the extremely popular language learning app. 1 in 5 Americans have learn a new language on their bucket list. If that's you, make 2024 the year you finally check it off the list with Babbel. Be a better you in 2024 with Babbel, the science-backed language learning app that actually works. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by more than 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. More than 16 million people have used Babbel thus far. I've been using Babbel for going on about 2 months now, and there's no doubt I'm getting better with my Spanglish. I'm getting better, man. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/on-Texas. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/on-Texas, spelled BABBEL.com/on-Texas. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hey, by the way, we're about to get the Khalil Lockett news, but I wanted to say somebody asked in their chat, it has my prediction for the season record change. I remain the same. I'm 10-2, just like I was last year at the beginning of the season. I'm 10-2. If Texas beats Michigan, then obviously that number changes for me. Nothing's changed as far as win-loss prediction for me. The staff's just they're just changing a little bit of the plan. That's the whole key. They've just got to change up what the plan number 1 was, and they're going now to plan number 2.
Well, guys, it wasn't all bad news yesterday. Texas reeled in a 5-star commitment. Jerry, I'm going to let you take it away here.
Yeah, Khalil Lockett from Saxe High there in the Garland area, east of Dallas. Very talented school, first of all. Same school Devin Duvernay came out of. Alex Orji, Michigan's quarterback, played at Saxe High. 4 or 5 other NFL players through the years have come through there, including Jared Maiden. They've had some really good skill kids, outside linebacker, edge type of kids. Khalil Lockett, here he is committing yesterday. I really like the Saxe helmet, by the way. And no, I'm not a Miami Hurricanes fan, but that's actually a pretty cool helmet. Here's where I think the Khalil Lockett commitment is big for Texas. Is there's a transition. Everybody talks about line of scrimmage league, the SEC. There's a transition into SEC as well from a skill position standpoint. I think what Texas is going to face, we know they're going to face better on a week in, week out basis, higher level athletes on the defensive front. So what does that mean? They get to your quarterback. They can disrupt your timing quicker. Then on the flip side of that, you're also going to face more taller, longer-limbed corners on the outside in the SEC. Just go look at the NFL Combine last year. I think half the guys from the NFL Combine at DB were from the SEC. So having an outside X receiver, he doesn't have to be an exceptional athlete. Khalil Lockett's not going to go run 4.3 or 4.4. He's not running 10.5 and 100. He's not the track guy, but he has got exceptional body control. Rod Baber said it best. He turns 50-50 balls into 75-25, 80-20 balls. His strength is timing, great hands, 11-inch hands, by the way, 79, 80-inch wingspan, that body control, the ability to contort his body and make difficult catches. Obviously, a former basketball guy that, those guys that have to rebound the basketball, they have a sense for this stuff. But if your quarterback's under duress and your play is breaking down, you can spot throw here, and it becomes a 50-50 ball to a guy like this. And you can also scheme that. He's also going to be a threat in the red zone. I really think a big-time threat in the red zone. There's a reason Sark and Kalen DeBoer both wanted him in their offensive scheme and wanted him in the SEC. Bobby, he brings a lot of what Texas is going to need with that transition to the SEC. Who can go up against that 6'1", 6'2" corner with long arms and go win that back shoulder ball, that red zone ball? When that play breaks down and your quarterback's under duress and he has to throw it to a spot, who's going to go get it? You got to have guys like that in the SEC, and this is one of them. Yeah,
competitive catch.
Yep.
Right? That's the vernacular everybody's using these days. Can the guy make a competitive catch? And that seems to be what Khalil Lockett is all about at this point. My take on it a little bit here for you, Jerry, and Blake, and everyone else out there is I think Sark has those two guys if he can get Jamie French and Khalil Lockett. Those both are competitive catch, long-limbed, longer receivers that still have the quickness and ability to get open, right? Then you start circling, okay, who's going to be the speed guy in this class? Or are they going to wait and see if Silas Bolden stays another year, or maybe Isaiah Bond stays another year, et cetera, right? I mean, Ryan Wingo certainly is going to be in that. But if you look at it, you could literally in 2 years say French, Lockett, and Wingo, and you've got 3 receivers that are 6 foot plus with nearly 80-inch wingspans. I mean, that looks like an SEC receiving core to me, right? Now, I'm not saying other guys won't play a role, including especially Jonte Cook, but he may be gone by then. But my point being, 2026, those time when those guys are starting to really come up, could be a different story there for Texas. I like that a lot. I like this commitment. I like that his production levels averaged more than 20 yards a catch a year ago. Jerry, 13 touchdowns, got in the end zone quite a bit as well. Hey, we have some video thanks to our friend. Greg Powers over at Dave Campbell's, I believe, taped this and posted this on YouTube yesterday. Want to show this if you don't mind.
Even when I got success, you ain't ever, you never switched up on me. And I got you, and I love you forever too, Coach. I'd like to thank every college that's recruited me up to this point. I'm thankful for y'all believing in me and my ability to take it to the next level. Lastly, I want to thank my people on here no more. I got y'all forever, so I know y'all looking down on me. Now, with that being said, I'll be going to the University of Hold on, I gotta make a call real quick.
He needs to pick up the phone faster next time, by the way. We're waiting for this here, guys.
Hey, you know, dang. Oh, yeah. Oh, there you go. Hey, Coach. Hey, I want y'all to go. I want you to go ahead and tell the people where we're going, Coach.
Man, my man, Cedric Lockett from Saxe High School is committing to the University of Texas football.
They brought in Chris Jackson, wide receivers coach, University of Texas, as part of that ceremony via, I guess, FaceTime there. Good stuff from Cedric Lockett. Congratulations to him and his family. He becomes, is that make 17 now? Is that right, Jerry? Verbal commitments for the Longhorns as the Longhorns now edge into that top 10 range on team recruiting rankings. Still a big month of August ahead for the Longhorns.
Yeah, and so look, Cedric Lockett obviously picked Texas over Alabama, A&M, LSU, and then Florida State was his fifth. But one thing I wanted to say too, a couple of things about Cedric Lockett. One, I sat down 20, 25 minutes with him at Saxe High in the spring, and I've said before, I'm not sure on this show or a different show, I get him mixed up. Great culture fit at Texas. Dude, he's a funny kid now. He is witty. He has got a sense of humor. I'm not trying to go Mac Brown here and say, got a great smile. I'm not doing that. I'm just talking about Cedric. He is a witty, funny kid. I think he is a great fit with this culture that Sark's built at the University of Texas. I really think he is. Red Barons and his staff at Saxe High do a great job up there, have for years. Look, Devin Duvernay came out of there. And I asked Coach Barons when I was there, I was like, look, you've had Devin Duvernay, you've had a couple other guys. And he's like, look, Devin Duvernay is the fastest receiver we've ever had at Saxe. And yeah, Devin Duvernay ran 10-2, 10-3, of course. He said Cedric Lockett has the best body control in that length and that wingspan of any guy we've had come through here. So that was just his take on two tremendous football players, both top 50 ranked top kids in the country in their classes coming out of high school. But I think Cedric Lockett is a tremendous fit at the University of Texas. The other thing I wanted to mention, this was a really big win for Sark in Texas because this isn't a kid whose family grew up in Texas and one had A&M jersey on and one had Texas jersey on. And the question was which school he was going to go to close to home. His dad's from Southern California. His mom grew up in Louisiana and Mississippi. So this is not a family that's always been in the state of Texas, that the family tree's in the state of Texas. This was a kid that was a national recruit, that Texas scheme, the use of the wide receivers in that scheme, the development, Chris Jackson's development, the quarterback room, and then the academic athletic combination was big here with Cedric and his family.
And before
I also need to mention DJ Sanders.
Yep,
we talked about that. DJ Sanders committed. We've been saying it's going to be after the sun goes down commitment. We weren't sure it was going to be last night. It was supposed to be Thursday night. Like we said, he's running his own race over here in recruiting. Not that that's bad or anything. He's just different. He's not a big communicator with people. I think his coaching staff at Belleville thought his announcement was going to be tonight. But he had announced for the Aggies last night around 10:05. I don't know. I had NyQuil. I was asleep. But I'll be honest, I was out. I'd had to get some sleep with the allergies. But he announced last night at 10 o'clock for Texas A&M. We had an article on Texas football that it wasn't going to be Michigan. The people in the family, even though there was an uncle that lived in Detroit area on the grandfather's side, they didn't want him that far from home. It was going to come down to Texas and Texas A&M. Both those schools felt good at different times, but I think I always used the term cautiously optimistic because since he didn't communicate with college coaches as much, they were kind of left wondering at times, okay, where's this guy going to head? What's he going to do? As a prospect, nothing's changed. Doesn't matter. With me, I don't care where a kid commits. High upside, I think it's going to take him longer to realize that potential from a developmental standpoint than maybe some other guys when we were talking about that Texas was recruiting. But his upside's there. It's up to him to go maximize it. He's got long arms. He's got really quick feet for a big kid. He's 6'4", 315. I think from a technical standpoint, there's going to be some big development in front of him and body reshaping standpoint and that physical maximization of frame. I think it may take a little longer than maybe some of the other kids in the class that Texas was recruiting, but his upside's there. He's just got to go chase it and get it done.
Okay, guys. Well, we got a lot of questions to get to, and we got a lot of super chats that we need to knock out. And we're going to start with this one from Izzy True. Thank you, Izzy, for the super chat. And he said, first time putting in a super chat, I left it blank. No problem there. We got you covered. My question was, if Cedric Baxter was such a huge part of Sark's scheme, why didn't we get a running back from the portal of his size, knowing that he is injury prone?
I think, again, this goes to what Jerry said earlier. Look, last year it was an ankle. It wasn't, and he came back. And then it was a thigh. I think it was a thigh bruise or something, right? That he's not necessarily injury prone. And this was not, you're not prone to an LCL, PCL. And so I think they thought Jarrett Gibson and or Christian Clark would be the heir apparent in that role. And they went after two bigger backs because of that in this class. Let's see if they're okay with that. I hear you. In retrospect, you'd probably like a bigger back right now that had 2 or 3 years experience and had rushed for nearly 1,000 yards. But, you didn't get everything. And also remember, Texas was fighting that 85-man scholarship limit at some level this offseason until they started coming out with the new NCAA rules where it looks like it's going to be 105. So they had some other priorities that I think rightfully so, including defensive line, the secondary, et cetera. The wide receiver.
And I would say this as well. It's you want to put a tough task on Tashard Choice. So you're going to recruit 2 high school running backs under the assumption you're not going to take a portal running back, then turn around and take a portal running back.
Right.
That's just not that's just not the way it's going to go down. Because then you put Tashard Choice in the position he doesn't want to be in. That's having to go back and tell those families, you know what? I know what I said earlier, but that's not the position you want to be in. So Texas has 5 running backs. Savion Red transferred. They have 5 running backs. Now they're down to 4. If somebody else goes down, it becomes an issue. Right now, from a depth perspective, it's not an issue. It's an issue because you lost your best, you lost your starting running back and your all-around best running back. But it's not a depth issue unless somebody else goes down. A lot of teams get through. They're going to go through a season fine with 3 or 4 running backs. But somebody else will get dinged up this year. No game's been played. They haven't even had a scrimmage yet. The first one Saturday. So somebody else is going to get dinged up. So what it means to me is now Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark, all right, you're playing this year. Maybe you got a few carries against Colorado State, UTSA, but you're now a play away from touching it 10, 15 times, one of the 2 guys. And then the other guy's the number 3 guy. Because there's going to be somebody else nicked up. Somebody's going to miss a game, going to miss time. So now Jarrett Gibson, Christian Clark, it's time to play.
Then our next super chat comes from Jack, who's no stranger to super chats. Thank you as always, Jack. And he said, CJ and Rod had a good idea for pass protection. Train Juan Davis in the backfield as a blocker, lead back, and pass protector. Plus, he can catch the ball out of the backfield too.
Takes away the run threat, but I get it.
That's exactly. I completely agree. Takes away the run threat. If you're talking 3rd and 8, okay. You're talking 3rd and 2. Not necessarily. I think it's situational. That's what I meant by piecemeal, having to do something piecemeal. That's a piecemeal solution. It is one, but it's not entire. You're not going to line up with Juan Davis like that on 3rd and 1 and hand him the ball. That's the difference. So it's still a piecemeal solution. The ideal situation, frankly, is Jarrett Gibson or Christian Clark comes out there and proves they can do it all, including the idea that they are a smart, intelligent football player, can really grasp pass protection. That would be ideal. I think it's unlikely that happens, though. I think it's going to be more this whole piecemeal approach where it may include several different ideas behind it that create the opportunity. What do you got next, Blake?
People are asking about Trey Wisner. Well, look, we all think Trey Wisner's a really good football player. I think he's going to have a really good season for Texas. Thing we haven't even got into yet, which we will. I think I got to tell everybody about their favorite product coming up. But Trey Wisner, slasher, just different backs. I mean, that's the thing. Baxter, Blue, Wisner, and it's, I think, what make the Texas running back room so good. They're all different types of backs. You can't ask Trey Wisner to do the same things you or Cedric Baxter. You're not going to ask Blue to do the same things as Cedric Baxter. Like we said earlier, if Jaden Blue had been the one that got hurt, you weren't going to see Sark push Cedric Baxter to the slot and tell him to run down the seam. I mean, these guys are different. But Trey Wisner, I think he'll have a really good season. I think he's a really good slasher running back. I think he can play out of the backfield. And the things we got to get to next, Bobby, we didn't talk about this yesterday morning because we were kind of waiting for the news to actually happen, was what does it do? What's the trickle-down effect? Hard to see Wisner as the gunner. Jaden Blue definitely, that's second-team gunner reps. Those days are over. Jaden Blue probably won't be a kickoff return guy, So the trickle-down effect is worth talking about because we talk about the injury, the impact at running back, but then, Jeff Banks is looking and said, okay, well, Trey Wisner is going to touch the ball 10, 15 times a game now. Do we really want him as a gunner on punt team? Because we want him to have fresh legs at running back. And so if you punt it 3, 4, 5 times a game, or he played on the other special teams last year, I believe, those days are over for Trey Wisner.
You would think.
More than likely.
Next super chat's from Oscar here, and thank you, Oscar. Is Blue capable of being a downhill, short yardage goal line back?
Look, here's the thing I want to be really just straightforward, and I think I have been, but it's such a topic. Nobody's saying Jaden Blue can't take a handoff and run the football between the tackles. But the question is, do you want to ask him to do it 12 to 15 times a game? And that doesn't mean every run ends up there, but with Sark's scheme, as important as that is for kind of opening up his scheme and what he likes to do, are you going to ask somebody to do that if that's not what they do best is the question? Or are you going to change what you do a little bit to continue to put Jaden Blue in the best positions to be the most effective? Because if you hand Jaden the ball 12, 15 times in the A gaps here, in a plays that maybe A gap plays, maybe slide to a B gap, is that really his strength as a running back? Is that what you ideally wanted to see him do? No. The answer is no. Can he do it? Yes. But do you want him to do that 150 times this season? Probably not, Bobby.
I agree. I think he can get tough yardage. He did it against Washington last year. Okay. There's no doubt he can. He does that too much. You make him less effective long-term. I'm just on the outside everywhere else because he's going to get banged up. And it just, a lot of bodies flying in there. I mean, I like him. I like him, but there's a reason the Chiefs didn't run Jamal Charles 10 times up the middle a game. They ran him off tackle. I mean, they're very similar backs in that regard, in that what they really do well. You want to put those guys in situations. Doesn't mean they can't do it in a pinch, to Jerry's point, but you want to put those guys in situations where they can be their best selves.
All right, guys, before we get to these next super chats and other questions, Jerry, tell folks out there about Manscaped.
Well, I mean, look, it's the read is the 2024 Beard and Balls bundle. Man, that's a good start to a read, isn't it? Fellas, do you want your grooming routine to be a one and done deal? I do. Well, the days of using the same trimmer for your face and your private parts are over, thanks to our friends at Manscaped. Love the noise. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep your hairs trimmed from 12 to 6, introducing the Beard and Balls bundle featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger, a trimmer for the moneymaker and another for the boys downstairs. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code ONTEXAS, all caps, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with code ONTEXAS at manscaped.com. For the premium grooming experience, trust Manscaped. All right, say goodbye to those endless passes. This trimmer gets it right the first time, cutting through the bushiest of bushes effortlessly while being gentle on your skin and your delicate faces and places.
Love it. All right. We got a lot of more questions, a lot more super chats. We're going to jump right back into them, and we're going to start with this one from Trace Little. Thank you, Trace. He says, I wonder if we'll see more empty sets due to the wide receiver room goodness.
I have a bigger question. Is Sark going to have to go more college-style offense than pro-style offense?
Yeah.
And how will that work? We know that would work in the Big 12. We've seen it work in the Big 12. The only person that's really made that work in the SEC has been Mike Leach, where he just totally gives over to it. And even then, he wasn't exactly ultra successful in the SEC with it. That, Texas could change it. So to Jerry's comment earlier, he said that they had plan A with inside outside, thunder and lightning, whatever you want to call it, with Baxter and Blue. They're not going to have to go to maybe plan B. Does plan B mean a more college-like offense for Steve Sarkisian as opposed to a pro-style offense? And that means more severe sets like 5 wides at times or 4 wides.
That's why you recruit all the talent and speed. And that's why Sarkisian has a tremendous offensive mind, and this is why he gets paid the big bucks.
And then our next one.
And by the way, for all the people that were talking about the putting all the over-unders and numbers on Quinn's passing numbers, I think those went up yesterday.
Yes. Yeah, the over and under on Quinn's stats just went up.
Yes.
I completely agree on that comment. Completely agree.
Then our next one, guys, comes from Longhorn Frenzy. Thank you, Longhorn Frenzy. He said, is there a Roschon Johnson type on the team that could step in and fill that role? Thanks for all you guys do.
I think hold on a second, Jerry. I think Juan Davis, from a blocking back perspective, might be that type, but from a true full on perspective, unless it's Jarrett Gibson, okay, there's not another Roschon Johnson just hanging around, because he's not only a good player, but he's also a selfless one and a team leader. Juan Davis would be the only one, but he's not a runner is the problem. He's a piece of the pie potentially. I kidded yesterday. The only player that I think could step in and be that big back that Texas would want and do it really well is Anthony Hill, because he did it in high school. Yeah, but there's no chance, right? I mean, you're not going to move a potential all-conference guy and one of your top disruptors on defense for a season over to offense. You're just not going to do it.
So Brandon Huey, here's a good one. 1,300 all-purpose shorts for Blue. I say over. I was thinking that before the Cedric Baxter injury, but I had it more pegged with 500 receiving yards for Jaden Blue this year, because I think the spring game was just kind of a little taste for Texas fans of what Texas had planned to do with Jaden Blue in the passing game this year out of the running back position, because he's got such tremendous hands and downfield speed. He's going to need to hit that number. I'll say that. So we were talking about it yesterday afternoon. Jahmyr Gibbs 1 year at Alabama, he rushed for 926 in the SEC and had 444 receiving, so 1,370 yards. And I'm not comparing Jaden Blue to Jahmyr Gibbs, but I'm saying from a production standpoint, they're going to need similar from Jaden Blue this year.
And then our next one is a super chat from Justin Yarbrough. And Justin says, thoughts on the young guys in the secondary taking the roles on special teams left open by Blue, and Wisner now having a bigger role on the offense.
One of those guys, Wardell Mack, Santana Wilson, Kobe Black, Jordan Johnson Rubel, Xavier Filsamy, you get ready. The problem is, I don't know that any of them are as long as or as quick as Trey Wisner. Trey Wisner's got some special quickness to go along with some feistiness. I bet we see Jelani McDonald on all special teams again as part of this. It makes more sense now for him to play that role. I think Wardell Mack has a chance to be a role player there. We'll see. We'll see what Texas does at gunner, because I do think it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard to utilize Trey Wisner, who was, I think, the best gunner in that role. I think you're going to see more Warren Roberson now, almost assuredly, because he's kind of that tough fight through things guy and got some speed. But we'll see what they do on special teams. It definitely, Jerry called it a trickle down effect with losing Baxter. There's certainly one going on right now, and frankly, Texas, by the way, is out on the practice field right now. They're practicing from 9 to 11 today, so they did not show us special teams today, which has been what they did. So clearly, I'm thinking that may be part of it, but we'll see what happens.
But I want to mention this because it's important, because I think, Bobby, you'll come on and talk about it. Sark's going to have a press conference, his media availability after the practice. So obviously he'll be, what he'll be starting off with, kind of get his thoughts. And so I know Bobby's and some of the guys are going to be there. So we'll have a report on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be there. And I don't even know if I'm going to have to ask it, because he's going to have to sit down and talk about it before he even gets asked, I think.
Yes. Yeah, I think he'll address it right out of the gate. And then a couple of people will probably hit him with follow-ups on it.
Yep.
Hey, by the way, so I want to reiterate, because we're fun with numbers, which I love. I love this in the chat. So I think there's some people, 1,500 plus for Jaden Blue. I'm going to reiterate something here. Jahmyr Gibbs, 926 rushing, 444 receiving at Alabama with the #1 pick in the draft at quarterback, and a bunch of future NFL guys all around them. Texas still has a lot of really good players. Sarkisian's still got to spread that football around. Quinn Ewers has got to be a distributor of football to maximize the season. So I think I'm not sure you're going to see, if Jaden Blue had put up 1,600 yards or something crazy in the SEC this year, you tip your hat and move on. Great year, dude. Jahmyr Gibbs did not. Just pointing that out. And because look, they're still going to be a load thing with these guys. Trey Wisner, his touches just went up from 4 to 5 a game to 10 to 12 a game, at least.
Our next super chat comes from Cliff Beckman, and Cliff says, good morning from Arizona. Do you think the team still gets 4 defensive tackles in this recruiting class? Great job as always.
Yeah, so sitting at 1, and I think Sharma's a tremendous prospect. Texas is going to stay on some guys that are committed elsewhere. We know Myron Charles, we mentioned that. Chase Sims committed to A&M, a couple of guys like that. I also look for a couple of senior year offers to come through in the Southeast. Maybe Kenny Baker, since he got in late, didn't get a chance to go evaluate all the kids on the defensive line in this class in the spring. Just not enough time. And I kind of think you're going to see a couple of those guys that are really good players committed elsewhere that may be better than that jump on the Texas radar at some point during the season.
By the way, Cliff,
4, I don't know. 3, they got to get 3. I don't know if they'll hit 4, Bobby.
I would agree with that number. By the way, I met Cliff last year at the Alabama tailgate Big Alabama tailgate we had. We're going to do that again up at Michigan, an away tailgate. I'll have more information on that for everybody probably early next week.
And jumping back over to the super chats, this should be an easy one to answer. Brandon Huey, thank you, Brandon, says, Bobby, Paul, stat, I like the powder blue.
This is my nod to the Houston Oilers. I grew up in Houston, guys. Appreciate it. No, this actually comes, our friends over at the 40 Acres Collection also do some personal polos and stuff like that. I appreciate them very, very much. Jerry's got a stylish 40 Acres collection on right now. We'll get some, we're getting stuff going. I've got a couple of different things that I hope people will like before football season. I'll just put it that way. But we're waiting for everything to come in before we put everything up. I don't want to put one thing up at a time and do that kind of. I don't want to do it piecemeal. That's the word of the day, I guess.
Then our next one is a super chat from 88 is great, Sorrell, and thank you for that. He says, what's your guys' take on Bruce Feldman's freaks list? Any significance to this list and the lone Longhorn on there?
Yeah, I love it.
So look, I have a request. If Barron benches 425, I want to see him pick up Pops on Bevo Boulevard and walk down Bevo Boulevard with Pops this year before a game.
Hey, we asked during the media availability, I think it was on Tuesday, we asked Barron about it. He goes, I don't know what to think. He was surprised, but he was also very excited. You've raised a good young man. Mr. Sorrell, just really good. I walked away from that, and I was talking to a couple of other reporters, by the way. The guys that they brought in that day were Barron Sorrell, David Benda, Gunnar Helm, and Jaden Blue. Sorrell, Helm, and Benda, all three of those guys have just been, from the outset, total buy-in culture guys. Now, Sorrell obviously played earlier than the others. Helm played a little bit, and then Benda now getting a shot this year. So they're all at different stages. But I walked around and I said something to, I think it was Danny Davis at the Statesman after that. I was like, man, Sark's got some good kids. He's got some good kids that take the right attitude about life and what it's going to take to get you where you need to go and want to go in it. So congratulations. I don't know that there's any significance to the freaks list. I would like to put some other guys on there as well. Frankly, if I were the University of Texas, if I'm a Texas fan, there are a couple other guys that I think are in there as well. So
here's the best compliment I can give to the Sorrell family. They have a son that academically could have gone to Northwestern, Stanford, or Texas, and was a good enough football player to do it as well. That's pretty cool. Because if you get to the list of guys who are good enough academically and good enough football players, that's not a long list. So congrats to the family, man. That's awesome.
Okay, Bobby, before we get to these last couple of questions here, you know what time it is? It's time to tell folks out there about Austin Underground.
Absolutely. Rick Vavro and his team over at Austin Underground have been helping folks with difficult underground commercial installations since 2004. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider just too risky. Rick, who is a big-time UT grad and supporter, and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. Most importantly, though, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's our friends over at Austin Underground. They also have Austin Road, which does a lot of big road projects in and around the Austin area and across the state.
Now, one last super chat to get to. This one from UT Tyler Guy. Thank you, UT Tyler Guy. And he says, isn't recruiting in a dead period right now? Curious if Lockett calling Chris J goes against the rule or not. Maybe I got the rules wrong.
No, it's a good thought. Dead period is face-to-face contact. So essentially, Khalid Lockett or any prospect can't go to Texas, be on campus, and meet with a coach face-to-face. So no, you're not going to practices. You're not going in the facility, nothing like that. So Coaches aren't working to get kids on campus right now because they can't. So that's what you can contact any point in time. The contact rules are a lot looser than they used to be. So it's just the face-to-face contact during the dead period.
And one other super chat just rolled in. Derek Wisner. Thank you, Derek. He says, save the Wisners a spot at the Michigan tailgate.
No.
You don't worry about that now. You've got one. I think we're going to be across the street from the stadium. It should be no more than a 3 to 5 minute walk. Again, and it's supposed to be really close. We think ESPN Game Day is going to be there, and this would be almost adjacent to where that would be. So I was talking about it yesterday with the guy that's putting it together for everyone, and hopefully you guys can stop by. We'd love to have you, obviously.
Hey, I want us to talk about one more thing real quick. We've had so much going on, but I wanted to get to this. The NCAA threw a 4-year show cause at Jim Harbaugh yesterday. So, look, Jim Harbaugh can go out there, no, I had no idea, no. No, he got a 4-year show clause. Okay, so that doesn't happen. That's just go take a look at the list of guys that got 4-year show causes. That's not a real long list, Bobby. That's pretty significant.
Hey, it's a 4-year show cause, I think, and there was also another rider in that deal that said in that show cause that said he had to be 1 year of no coaching at all after he's hired by someone. So, that's not just a show cause. It's also a 12-game, a 12-game automatic suspension. So it was, they certainly feel there's something there. And now Mark Valdez saying Jerome Moore, sacrificial lamb. Look, we'll see what happens second week in Ann Arbor. Texas and Michigan, certainly two of the most storied programs in the history of the sport, and I can't wait to be there. But I can't wait to be in DKR 23 days away either, because Texas cannot take its eye off the ball against Colorado State. Looking forward to Michigan. A wake-up call of sorts in that regard was issued this week with Cedric Baxter's injury, in my opinion.
So we're Jaden Blue days away from the season. So if anybody sees Jaden Blue in bubble wrap walking around Austin, you'll know why.
There you go. All right, well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. We want to thank them, along with HelloFresh, Babbel, and Manscaped, for sponsoring today's show. Thank you all for the great questions, the super chats, for tuning in, for the support. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell so you're notified anytime that we go live. But also, Bobby, tell folks why they should be a member of OnTexasFootball.com before we get out of here.
Look, I mean, Jerry and I, Blake, yourself, always doing even the baseball transfer portal stuff right now. CJ Vogel writing for us. We put articles up every morning and afternoon on Texas Football. So if you want to join us and just join the discussion and become a member of our community, please do so on TexasFootball.com. Get in the message boards, ask us questions. We like to talk Texas football, not just when we're on video or on podcast, but also when we're watching, when we're not doing that and just sitting around the house trying to figure out what's going on with the Longhorns.
Hey, sorry if we don't get to all your questions. Somebody kept asking about the number of people asked about the 5-star prospects, ranked prospects remaining for Texas. Jonah Williams, Michael Terry, Fasusi, Jamie French, and one other. I can't remember who else somebody listed there that's ranked by various services. Who I think Texas has the best shot at. I mean, we'll see here coming down the stretch on some of those guys. Look, I think Jamie French and Texas have been in a good spot for a while, but Miami's there's always going to be somebody in these recruitments that make these things really close at the end. It's never just goes one way without competition, right? Miami is that competition. We'll see what happens with Jamie French. Jonah Williams, we'll see how serious he is with Texas here in the next week or so. Not taking an official visit, made official visits to 4 other schools in that Final 5. Michael Terry, I think Texas, Nebraska Oregon likes probably too far away. Nebraska's throwing all the kitchen sinks, and Lincoln and Omaha at it. We'll see what happens there. Michael Fasusi, Texas OU.
Well, we will be back same time, same place tomorrow morning. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm